Okay, now two questions someone asked. Number one is, where is the actual place that the pulpit should be placed in the Anglican Church? Is it by the right side when you are facing the altar, that is the liturgical south, or the left side when you are facing the altar, that is the liturgical north? The correct place that the pulpit is placed in the Anglican Church is the liturgical north. That is the left side of the congregation when they are facing the altar. Now, there are churches you go, you discover that the pulpit is placed on the right side. That is the epistle side, the liturgical south. Why is that? Well, there was a time the calculation for liturgical north and south was done from the priest perspective. In other words, when the priest is standing in the altar area looking at the congregation. So his left will be south side, then his right will be gospel side. But later, the church returned it to the actual side. That is the side of the congregation, from the congregation's perspective when they are looking at the altar. So the liturgical north has been the left side of the congregation, that is the gospel side. Then the right side, the liturgical south, is the epistle side. But churches that had their pulpit at the epistle side, the liturgical south, retained it for historical reasons, because to changing architecture and rearranging things in the church may distort the historical or the history of what has been in the church. So this is why they retained it. But you will discover that modern churches now have their pulpits at the gospel side from the congregation's perspective, because the correct interpretation of liturgical north and south is from the congregations, from the people's perspective, and not from the priest perspective when he's in the altar area looking at the people, but the people looking at the altar, the eastward, because the eastward or the altar represents Jerusalem, and Jerusalem represents the heavenly. So the people, they are looking unto Jesus. So it's from their perspective that you will calculate the liturgical south and liturgical north, and not the priest who is standing at the eastward looking west. And the west represents the earthly, the world, where the pilgrims will start their journey. This is why the baptism, the procession start from the west side towards the east side, because the people of God, they are journeying from this world to heaven while looking unto Jesus and following the cross of Christ. So this is the answer to the first question. Now, the second question, someone noticed something. If you look at the altar area, the chancel of All Saints Cathedral, Onitsha, you will discover that behind the altar, you will still see lay people sitting behind the altar as if they are sitting inside the altar area. So this person was like confused. Why is that? Now, it's very simple. Where they are sitting is called the Lady Chapel. Now, Lady Chapel in the medieval era was a small chapel at the east end of the altar. So from the altar or the chancel, you can walk into the Lady Chapel. So it was a chapel dedicated for the veneration of the Blessed Virgin Mary. But after Reformation, the veneration of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Anglican Church doesn't venerate any saint. But some churches, especially cathedrals, retained the Lady Chapel for other minor services like wedding, like morning prayer, or someone that wants to do personal meditation or personal retreat, or a group of people or a group of an organization that want to have a kind of devotional life, devotional setting, or Bible study, they can use Lady Chapel. So the place where you see people sitting at the east end of the altar at the All Saints Cathedral, Onitsha, is called Lady Chapel. So this is the answer to the second question. Thank you, and God bless you.